Happening all, welcome to Straight Shooting alongside AJ Riley. I'm Matt Basson. Before we jump into everything, got to remind you to like and subscribe wherever you can find us. That'd be TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, full episodes on YouTube, as well as DetroitSportsNation.com. AJ, we got to jump out to the City of Angels because, well, the Angels had quite a night last night. Reed Detmers, rookie, 22 years old, became the youngest pitcher to throw a no-hitter since Anibal Sanchez in 2006. It's the 12th no-hitter all-time for the Angels, the second this season in Major League Baseball, first by one man because it took 5 New York Mets combined for this year's first no-hitter against the Philadelphia Phillies. And we almost had 2, AJ, because earlier in the evening, Justin Verlander lost his bid for a no-hitter in the 8th inning, marking just the 4th day since 2000 that there were multiple no-hit bids of at least 7 innings on the same day. Verlander, unfortunately, didn't get it done, but Detmers absolutely, along with his teammates, of course, because he only had 2 strikeouts, but they absolutely got it done.
Yeah, but I mean, let's be honest, right? I'm happy that JV didn't get his no-hitter in an Astros uniform.
Petty, man, petty.
No, I know, I kid, but at the same time, I guess I don't kid because what's good about that is the fact that Detmer's no-hitter is not overshadowed by JV's 4th no-hitter. And what Detmers did last night was very impressive. And you got a kid that has made very few starts. He's 22 years old. He's playing on a team that is doing very well right now. And I was telling you off air, I watched that game last night until I fell asleep. I'll be honest, I did fall asleep, but I think I would have to recant what I said last show about the Angels. And I'll own it if I'm wrong, but there was a different energy. Mike Trout blasting 2 home runs, right? And they've got this cowboy hat, like I guess it's the home run cowboy hat or something that they put on in the dugout. But what's even crazier was what Anthony Rendon did. Did you know what I'm talking about, right? Up 10-0, he goes, I'm gonna hit left-handed. He decides to turn around, hit left-handed off a position player. Okay, so let's be very clear. And the dude was throwing BP, but he hit a 411-foot home run, left-handed. That's insane.
I mean, he might
things are going well when that is happening.
Yeah, that's impressive. Look, I got used to seeing Kobe have to shoot with his offhand at times because of positions he was in. Shooting a basketball left-handed,
Right.
Hitting a home run left-handed are 2 different things. If you are not used to doing that, and even if Rendon did that in college from time to time just for fun, but tried to be a switch hitter or whatever, but you're not doing that in the pros. And what you said, he did it off a position player, wasn't off a real pitcher, but still, to hit that hard, that far with your non-dominant side, that's really impressive.
That was really impressive, like super impressive. And I mean, that Angels team, if they stay healthy, man, there's something different about them.
They're starting to look all right.
Yeah, it's starting to click finally. They unloaded some contracts and finally are able to actually produce. So what a game. Congratulations to Detmers. Like, fantastic job, man.
Yeah, look, kid made this was his 11th start in the majors. Came in with a 2-4 mark, a 6.3 ERA, the 3rd highest ERA entering a no-hitter since ERA became an official stat in 1913. It's the first time the kid's gone even 7 innings in a major league game. So to complete the game, throw the no-hitter, yes, there was an error, but it's part of baseball. Things happen. To do all that at this age, this young, it's definitely impressive. And, it might be a sign of good things to come for the Los Angeles Angels this year.
Well, and you hope that you can get that third, guy in your rotation to do something like that. So, and to build upon, right? Because it's great that he threw the no-hitter. Now let's see what he does 5 days from now. right? Was this a flash in the pan, a fluke, or is it something that he can build off of? And the other night I heard Jack Morris talk about Tarek Skubel's outing the other day, where he went 7 innings, shutout baseball, had a really good outing, won the Tigers the first game of the doubleheader on Tuesday, and they were talking about how much a good outing can carry over into your next outing. So it'll be really interesting to see how he takes the momentum Detmers does, and even Skubal, right? Because he had a great outing too. But how Detmers takes that into his next start and maybe starts to bring that ERA down and that effectiveness up to really help the Angels in their push towards the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the offense behind him to be able to make his life easier. They're hitting right now.
Sure.
They're looking good right now, and he's got everything he needs to have a good season. He's just got to do his part. A little bit of an easier road for him than Skubal, but it's because our Tigers are terrible right now.
For sure. They are brutal. It's you'd never know what you're gonna get when they come to the. Well, actually, you do kind of know what you're gonna get when you expect them to not do anything offensively, because that's kind of been the MO for the Detroit Tigers in this early part of the season, and then they show flashes in the pan, like the day that Miggy got his 3,000th hit, where they scored 13 runs and just were mashing the baseball. And even in the first game of the doubleheader on Tuesday, where they were just mashing the ball. But I don't know, something's got to turn around. I was talking to one of my buddies where I work, and he goes, they just need to take the Billy Martin approach and start drawing names out of the hat for the lineup.
I mean,
and just see how that, you want to talk about shaking
right?
things up. We talked about that on the show the other night. Just shake it up, man. Just shake it up and get these guys hopefully hitting. I mean, that's definitely a tin cup approach, if you ask me. Draw names out of the hat for a lineup.
Or, maybe maybe AJ Hinch pulls a Bull Durham and he forces a rain out. Turn the sprinklers on, bring all the boys out, tell them to slide from base to base, have some fun, shake things up. Like, oh no, it's a torrential downpour that happened in the middle of the night. We can't have a game.
Yeah. It'd be nice, right? We just want to see them have fun. It doesn't look like when they're not hitting the ball, they're not having fun, and you got to get some guys hitting the ball so that they start to have some fun.
I mean,
again.
that's where your energy, your momentum, your camaraderie comes from. A baseball team is in that dugout when the guys are moving. When everyone's just sitting there striking out, everyone's just sitting there with their arms crossed and they're grumpy, and it's, oh great, it's my turn to strike out. Like, oh great, now it's his turn to strike out. Like, that's not fun. There's nothing fun about that. You gotta find ways to generate that energy for yourself to where eventually, hopefully, it comes along naturally and the swings start getting in sync and start finding the ball, and we can turn things around at least a little bit, because otherwise right now we looking like the 03 Tigers, and that is not a good team to look like.
Yeah, I mean, their run production at this point in the season matches that of the 2003 Tigers, so that's something definitely has got to turn around, or it's going to be a long summer at Comerica Park. A long summer.
So it's not
very long summer.
It's not all doom and gloom. Well, I guess it is mostly all doom and gloom.
It kind of is.
So
right. Yeah.
The NHL draft lottery happened, and I mean, the good news is our Red Wings didn't drop further down in the draft order. They finished off right about where they were expecting to come in. They came in with the 8th best odds, and they walked away with the number 8 pick, which was the most likely pick they were going to get. This is the 6th time consecutively for the Wings that they'll be drafting in the top 10. Last year, they were 6th, and they held form there. The year before, they had the worst record, but they dropped from what should have been the 1st pick to the 4th pick, so at least we didn't do that this year, but we still got a pretty good one in Lucas Raymond out of it. 19, we dropped from 4th to 6th. Again, at least we didn't drop this year. In 18, we dropped from 5th to 6th, and in 17, we dropped from 7th to 9th. So at least we stayed put this time and didn't fall further back in the draft order, and there is a lot of talent to go and get in that top 8 pick. There's some great guys over in Europe. There's some great guys been playing here stateside as well as in Canada that we can be looking at. I know our WG Brady released a piece on who he would like them to go after. A few of those names are
Right.
on my list as well. Some of those I think he's reaching for on some of those names because I think they're going to be gone by the 8th pick. I think he's hopeful. Look, again, some, especially guys like Shane Wright? Yeah, I mean, looking at guys like Shane Wright, who's, probably going to be the first pick in the draft, so most likely we're not going to get him. There's some big names out there, but there's some guys that are worth getting later, in the 7 or 8 position that I think can really help our Red Wings. Top of my list is David Jiricek, defenseman, dude, 6'3", 195 pounds. He's an absolute beast, but he had knee surgery earlier this season. So he's one of those guys that, might tumble on in the draft. You never know how they're going to look at guys like that. But there's a lot of talent for the Red Wings to look after, like I said, both in Europe as well as stateside. Cutter Gauthier was, kid's born in Sweden, but his father, playing over here. He played over here in Michigan for a while. Physical player, again, 6'3", 190 pounds, big dude. That's real big for hockey. Generally, you ain't finding too many guys that are over 6 foot. Brad Lambert, I mean, dude's a legacy. Lane Lambert, was a highly respected assistant coach now with the Islanders, and he played with Steve Yzerman here in Detroit. Brad Lambert has he has that skill. He has that ability to make a jump into the top 10 and be right around where we could be picking in that 8th spot. And Jimmy Snuggerud, which, I mean, come on. How badly do you want to have a hockey sweater with Snuggerud on the back of it? It's just, I can't wait to hear the announcer saying his name every time he scores a goal. He's the son of a former NHL player as well, and David Snuggerud, smart player, had 25 points in 24 games this season. He's got a quick shot release, not timid, going to the University of Minnesota, so maybe we steal him away from there. Another big dude, 6'2", 190. There's talent to be had at that 8th pick, and I think Steve Yzerman's gonna do his due diligence and get us one.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, in Yzerman we trust, right? That's kind of the mantra of all Red Wings fans at this point. But how unlucky are the Detroit Red Wings over these last stretch of years? I was reading a stat that they've lost 8 spots in the draft lottery over the last few years, which is the most all time. And I don't know if that's like it's Detroit's bad luck.
No, it's Gary Bettman hating Detroit.
If there's something... Oh, that's what I'm wondering, right? Like,
no, there's something's
got to be up there. There's got to be some kind of conspiracy theory going on saying, oh, Yzerman went back to his hometown. He's not going to get the first overall pick. But at the same time, like, there's some kind of, like, your system is broken if a team's losing that many spots over that many consecutive years.
Unless it's on purpose. Unless it's on purpose. Look, 85 right? draft, the frozen envelope, making sure the Knicks got the first pick and got Ewing. They're doing the same thing to the Red Wings. They just know when they feel that cold, don't draw it yet. Oh, that one's cold, don't draw it yet. Don't draw it yet.
That's exactly my thought, man. I almost texted you today like we should do something on the 85 NBA draft, but I was like, yeah, that's for another time because holy cow, is that a conspiracy that lives? And maybe we're living in the midst of another conspiracy with the Detroit Red Wings. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Hey, look,
maybe. Who knows?
You don't need to know. I know. I go look at the 2009 Stanley Cup Finals. I don't need to see anything else. I know Gary Bettman has a beef to pick with the Detroit Red Wings. I don't know if it's all the winning that we did in the 90s and the 2000s. But by the time 2009 ran around and Detroit was trying to defend their Stanley Cup against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Gary Bettman had enough. He needed his Michael Jordan to win himself a cup. That would be Sidney Crosby. And he made damn sure he did everything in his power, including allowing the Penguins to have an extra man on the ice for 21 seconds. And no one caught it.
Which is an eternity in hockey.
That is an eternity in hockey. And no one catches it, and Bettman's at the game, and no one catches this, where you should have put the Red Wings on a power play. We're up 2-0 in the series. We're up, I think it was either 1-0 or 2-0 in the game. You put us on a power play and we score, that game's basically over, and we go up 3-0 and that series is basically over. I will never not be convinced that Gary Bettman had it out for us in 2009 and made sure that he got his Michael Jordan, his LeBron James, his whatever, finally a Stanley Cup in Sidney Crosby, because he had to, because his ship was sinking, and he had to do everything he can to make sure that he got that awful child of a man a Stanley Cup.
Oh, Matt, you brought up something earlier. And I know that there's not a ton of news, especially with the Tigers being down. So we wanted to do something that could be a little bit more fun this week. And you brought up a movie called Bull Durham.
Mm-hmm.
And so bringing up that movie kind of puts us into this little overrated, underrated that we wanted to play tonight.
Yep.
So could you explain for us how the rest of our show is going to go?
So we're just talking baseball movies. It's the boys of summer. It's baseball season. Basketball is coming to an end, and Ryan and I got that covered on Throwing Stones. Football's not happening right now. We did our draft show, and we talked about all the Lions, who they got, and how they're going to do, and all that. And we'll talk about that starting up again, most likely in August, maybe a little bit beforehand. And then the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Our Red Wings have been out of it for so long. And I don't think either one of us want to, be tortured in that manner right now. So let's have a little fun, and let's take a look at some of the, better, if not best, baseball movies ever made, and we will decide for ourselves if we think they are overrated or underrated, or the rare chance that they are perfectly rated. And so for this, we're going to go off
and they're in. Yeah, they're in two categories, right? There's the nonfiction ones that kind of tell the story of seasons or careers or whatever, and then there's obviously the fiction ones that have, just those entertainment storylines going forward. And so we've got a list of them, and we're excited to give you our definitive guide on which baseball movies are overrated or underrated, and there's nowhere else you need to go other than right here on Straight Shooting, because these will be perfect takes.
I mean, you see the size of me. I obviously look like someone who watches a lot of movies, so you can definitely trust what I have to tell you. So we're going off of the IMDB, rating for these movies. This is, if you ever go to IMDB and you click on a movie to read about it, they usually ask you to rate it out of 10. And so whatever you rate, they add it to their list, and the mean average gets changed, based off of how many people and what they score. So you want to start nonfiction or fiction first, AJ?
Let's start nonfiction.
All right, let's start with the real stuff. Okay.
Yes, let's start with the real stuff.
So in alphabetical order.
Okay.
So we'll start with the numbers first, and the first one we got is 42. Jackie Robinson's story, most recently made with the King of Wakanda, Chaz Boseman.
What did IMDb rate it?
7.5. That's a good rating for a movie.
Okay. That is a good rating for a movie.
Let me back up real quick before you give your thoughts on it. So the way it works with IMDb, basically, if your number starts with a 6, you're at least a pretty good movie. If it's below 6, you're averaging towards the lower side. Bad movies, really bad movies are in the 4s and stuff that you've seen that went straight to TV usually is in a 4 or 5 range. If you're over 6, you're considered a pretty decent movie. Over 7, a pretty good movie. Over 8, you're getting into the greats now. So just to give you guys an idea of where we're at. So with a 7.5, that's a pretty high rating for the sports movies in general on IMDb.
Pretty high rating, but a not high enough rating.
Underrated for you.
42. Underrated for me. The performances in that movie, from Chadwick Boseman to
Harrison Ford,
who played Branch Rickey, and then it's I know it's his name's I don't know the actor's name, but I know that he played Mike. Is it Winchell or Wenzel or something in Friday Night Lights, who plays Pee Wee Reese in that movie.
Oh, right.
That movie
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
That movie to me is one of the better movies, specifically sports related. It was on the level for me of Remember the Titans. It was that.
So
good
Lucas
to me.
Black is who played Pee Wee Reese.
Yes. So 42 having a 7.5 on IMDb is a little underrated for me. For me.
Also, Christopher Maloney as Leo DeRocher. They had a great cast.
Yeah.
I think they did the story justice. they got through. They got through the. It's a very serious time. It's a very sad time.
It is.
It's. I mean, the blatant racism is awful. The way he was treated, by the Philadelphia Phillies, especially, but
Specifically.
specifically, but just in general, the whole situation that you think you could have a professional baseball league and not include black athletes is it's just crazy to me. Like I was born in the the early '80s and lived in places like Detroit area and Southern California where it's a mix of everybody. It's a hodgepodge of people, and that's what I grew up with. So the idea of racism to me is just crazy in the first place. But to have literally a time where you had a whole league and you weren't including some of the best athletes in the world as part of it and thinking that you're going to call yourself the best is just crazy. But then you mix in the lightheartedness, the turning of a lot of his teammates and everything, the staunchness of Branch Rickey, of basically not caring about any of the stuff and just trying to have the best baseball team. And he didn't care if you were black, white, Asian, didn't matter. If you could play ball, he wanted you. And I think all of that came through. I think they did the story justice. I think it's a little underrated. I don't know if I'd go much above a 7.8 with it, but at 7.5, it's lower than what I think it should be. So I'm with you on the underrated.
For sure. All right. I'm glad we're in agreement. You heard it here first. 42 is an underrated movie.
Okay, moving on alphabetically. 61 with an asterisk.
Yes.
So the Billy Crystal story of Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle and the Bronx Bombers. I'm a huge Billy Crystal fan in general. Whether he's behind the camera, in front of the camera, in front of a microphone doing stand-up, it doesn't matter to me. Billy Crystal is one of a kind. And this is completely off topic, but if you have never seen 700 Sundays, it is an absolute treasure of a show. It's a Broadway show. It's a one-man act.
Right.
It's Billy Crystal in front of a mock-up of his house that he grew up in New York. And they use the windows of the house to show like home movies of him as a kid, pictures, whatever. And he's talking about growing up with his brothers and his mom and his dad and everything in life. His dad worked in a record shop with a lot of jazz musicians. That's where Billy Crystal got his love of jazz. It's a phenomenal, heartwarming, and sad and wonderful story. But anyway, not the point of this. Billy Crystal, to me, just is a master at what he does. And his love for baseball is uncontested.
And the Yankees specifically.
Yeah. But New York
Yankees
specifically. I mean, I think he's also a big Mets fan as well. I think he's actually bridged that gap a bit where he's been on both sides of it. But his love is fantastic, and it shows through in the things that he does. And you could tell in 61 that he put his heart and soul into the way that this was put together.
Yeah, it's such a phenomenal story being told because we know, or baseball fans know, the story of Roger Maris. Midwest kid that played for the Cardinals, then gets traded to or signs with the Yankees the year after he wins, I think, the most valuable player. And just the way, you would think that a guy that's chasing what was thought to be an unattainable record, you would think that he would be praised. But the way this story was told was the opposite of that because it's what Maris dealt with. And I don't think that we as fans really understand the pressure that goes into showing up to a ballpark, talking to the fans, signing autographs, and then to add the added pressure on top of that of chasing a baseball god, essentially, in Babe Ruth, is just, the story was so well told. Do you remember where that movie was filmed?
It was filmed at Tiger Stadium, right?
I know I'm putting it was filmed in Tiger.
Yeah, they redid Tiger Stadium
after
to
it
look
had closed down. They'd moved.
Yeah.
And in fact, little tidbit for you, there's a scene in the movie where Maris gets called out on strikes, and the umpire goes, "You want me to run you?" That umpire was an umpire that umped my summer travel ball team,
That's cool.
and we'd talk to him about it. So that's my little connection to the movie. But I love this movie because, again, going back to Maris, he was the odd man out. If anybody was going to break the Babes record, it had to be Mantle,
Right.
right? But it wasn't. And that, just the way that Crystal told that story and the way that that story came together, I'm interested to see, what did IMDb give it?
A 7.7. So
Ooh.
0.2 higher than 42. In fact, it's the
You know
highest of the nonfiction movies that we have on this list.
Very interesting. And I might surprise you with this answer. I think that's perfectly rated.
I hear you.
I think it is. I do, absolutely.
The way that they were able to deal with the multiple aspects of, the 61 with the asterisk, because there were now 162 games in the season as opposed to 144. So he had 18 more games to get that, one more home run than Babe Ruth, as well as dealing with the relationship between Mantle and Maris, and the relationship between New York and Mantle, and New York and Maris.
Right.
And at the end, they bring in real life, and they show, Mark McGuire after he broke Maris's record, and the Maris family is there. Was, again, this is Billy Crystal. The man's got nothing but heart.
It was phenomenal,
and it shows in what he does.
Yeah.
And so to bring that real life aspect into a movie that is real, but is starring fictional people playing, these are actors playing these, these roles. To me, that just adds to it at the very, very end. But the way that they were able to get into everything, this was still a time where, your heroes lived in the neighborhood or around the corner from your neighborhoods. They weren't far and away yet, living off in mansions. This wasn't that time yet. So imagine Judge and Stanton having a similar situation right now, but living in the same town as all of their fans. Like, it doesn't happen now. You can escape all that and get away.
No,
but
he couldn't. You're right.
And unlike today in social media where they get you through the computer, then they got you in person. And it's a whole different animal.
I mean, the most heartbreaking thing about that whole thing are the end titles that come up, where it says that asterisk was not removed until after his death. He never saw the asterisk removed from the record books.
Yeah.
So he broke this record and did such a phenomenal job, and did not actually spend many more years in New York. He actually went back to St. Louis. Never saw that asterisk removed, and like, when the first time I saw that and I read that, I was like, man, like, heartbroken, like 100% heartbroken.
Okay, moving on. So the next in our list alphabetically, A League of Their Own. So AJ, I am so unbelievably disappointed in you that you have not seen this movie from beginning to end. Okay, this movie, this movie is a perfect movie. An absolute perfect movie. From story to casting. The only thing not perfect about this movie is the end credit scene, is like the just when the credits are rolling at the end, and they have some modern 90s Madonna song playing because Madonna's in the movie, and it was part of her contract to have her have a song during the credits. That is the only thing about this movie that is not perfect, because Madonna in it is perfect. Rosie O'Donnell is perfect. Gina Davis is perfect. Tom Hanks is absolutely perfect. The story is fantastic. The way it's done about, the boys are off at war. We need to find a way to entertain the men at home still that couldn't, either too old, too young, too broken, whatever, to go fight in World War II. And so you weren't having baseball. This is a real life thing. So they started the All-American Girls League, and girls played baseball in skirts. Look, I've made the mistake of playing baseball in shorts and sliding. It's a horrible mistake.
I thought you were going to say in a skirt.
No, in shorts. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's probably worse than the skirt because it actually can ride up higher than the short can. But no, it's a horrible mistake.
Yeah, you're right.
To forget you're wearing shorts because you're just caught up in the moment and you slide leg first into second base.
Yeah.
Terrible idea.
Oh, I know.
Absolutely terrible idea.
It is.
But you haven't seen this movie from
It
beginning
is.
to end, unfortunately. I'm sure you've seen enough of it. You've seen the famous pieces, I'm sure. Tom Hanks is literally at his funniest in this movie. He
Yeah,
is
for sure.
an absolute gem in this movie in so many ways. The World War II aspect is huge, you know, and that plays a big factor in it as well. And this the story of these women that, you know, and there's real stories of these women in here. You know, there's real stories of one of the actors that was chosen who literally couldn't read. Like that was part, and then and played to that fact in the movie. There was so much put into this movie, and Gina Davis was a fantastic athlete that got to show off some of this athleticism in this movie. It's rated a it was rated a 7.3 by IMDb. That is horribly underrated for me. This is one of the few sports movies that I think should be an 8.5 or above. It is that good of a movie. I might be on an island on this one. You haven't seen it from beginning to end, but you've seen enough of the, you know, the baseball scenes and the Tom Hanks scenes to give you an idea of how good this movie was.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe we picked the wrong scale because we keep going with everything being underrated.
Well, we had the correct rating for 61.
Yeah, we did. You're right. But yeah, it's my mission after hearing you describe this. It is my mission to have this watched by the next time that we cast. So
has Jess seen
the next
it?
time
Has your
we
wife seen it?
record, man, when I married Jess, she hadn't even seen The Sandlot until we were married.
Okay, but that's
So
different.
I made
That's
her.
a boys' movie.
No,
It's a boys' movie. Come on,
it
it's a
is
boys'
not.
movie. The Sandlot is a boys' movie. A League of Their Own is not a boys' movie. A League of Their Own is an every person
Oh,
movie.
The Sandlot. It is for sure. You know what? I don't know. If she hasn't, we will watch it this weekend. Guaranteed.
All right.
Guaranteed. So I'm going to actually reserve my judgment and say 6.9 is okay until I've seen it, and then I will report back.
All right. We move on to...
Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair. So we move on to 8 Men Out,
Okay.
which has a rating of 7.2. Now, AJ, you and I have talked a lot about...
At length.
At length about this movie, the book, the real stuff versus a lot of the fake stuff that has been thrown around regarding the scandal of the 1919 Chicago Black Sox.
Yeah. So, this was, aside from like Rookie of the Year and Sandlot, stuff that we're going to get to, this was probably my favorite movie of my childhood.
Wow. Okay.
I just but let me explain it to you for a second before remember, I'm a young baseball kid. And my grandmother was born in 1919. So there's always this like weird connection, right, between like the Black Sox and my grandmother, and so being a big baseball fan, I remember going to the video store and renting this movie and watching it and like falling in love with the Black Sox. As like a 9-10-year-old. And then every time we went to rent a movie, I wanted to rent 8 Men Out. So I saw it probably 4 or 5 times as a kid, right? Because like it was the first like historical movie that like really helped me make it, and truly the movie that started my passion in baseball history.
Wow. Okay.
And all of that.
That's cool.
Okay. Fast forward a number of years, and I read the book that the movie's based on, because and I learn a lot of things from that book, but also being a member of the Society for American Baseball Research, there is a gentleman there that does a great job of actually telling the story of the 1919 Black Sox, which 8 Men Out and the book 8 Men Out do not accurately represent. And so knowing that and having done, like, I love the movie. I think it's very entertaining, and I think that it is very well done and put together, and they do a great job of telling the story. But you said it's what, a 6 point what?
No, 7.2.
Yeah, it's overrated.
We are in agreement.
It's overrated.
It's got great characters. It makes me
It
feel
does.
so much for Buck Weaver, especially
Yes.
over anybody else, even over
Mm-hmm.
Shoeless Joe Jackson. But I think if any, out of
Mm-hmm.
those two, and then everybody else of the 8 men out, but Buck Weaver and then Shoeless Joe for just how good they were, how well they still played in that World Series despite the whole fiasco with the taking of the money. John Cusack, very good actor, very
Great
entertaining
job.
actor. This is, right around, one of his earlier heights in the end of the 80s, where he was kind of that teen heartthrob
Mm-hmm.
moving into his 20s. And, they played off at the music and
Sure.
everything chosen. It's very end of the 80s, early 90s style movie, which kind of hurts it in some ways as far as being taken seriously. It works really well for things like Major League, which are supposed to be funny. This is a real story and a serious story that came off a little hokey at times. So I agree with you. I think 7.2 is a little overrated. They obviously, didn't get the story completely right, but that's Hollywood. They never do. Watching a great show right now called Winning Time. Did they get it right? No, absolutely not. They got plenty of things wrong, but they make it entertaining. So it's Hollywood. It's what they do. But I'm in agreement with you.
Right, and
It's
that's
worth
the thing,
seeing.
though.
It's worth
Right,
seeing,
that's
but it's not
it
worth a
is.
7.2.
It is, and that's the thing, right? I think I'm more disappointed in the inaccuracies and the bad historical record of the book than I am the movie. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Because you and I have talked at length about this. We both read the book, we've both seen the movie, and I introduced you to that guy through his work, not actually the person of the guy that is like the authority on the 1919 Black Sox. So it's just disappointing when you have somebody that puts in print stuff that is not accurate, and that to me, as a writer and creator, is something that is disappointing.
Okay, next up in the nonfiction side is Moneyball. More recent movie. A story that a lot of baseball fans know more about. Obviously, this happened, the early 2000s with the Oakland Athletics. I'll let you take this one first.
First of all, I want to know what it's rated.
It is rated 7.6. So a 0.1 higher than 42, 0.1 lower than 61.
Yeah, so this I wonder how much of these ratings are actually for like the production of the movie itself, right? I credit Moneyball as kicking off this new wave of baseball, which I don't think is a very far stretch, and I'm probably not the first one that has said that, but I like Moneyball, and I'm very entertained by Moneyball, and I enjoy watching Moneyball. Is it a better baseball movie than 42? No, it is not. The best thing about the movie Moneyball is the character that plays Ron Washington sitting in Scott Hatterberg's front living room, and Brad Pitt Billy Bean going, first base ain't that hard. You can't learn it. Tell him it's incredibly hard. Like that's the best thing about that movie. I like the fact that Chris Pratt is in it. I think he does a great job of Scott Hatterberg and the trepidation of moving from catcher to first base. And I thought that they did a really good job, but what they failed to mention, that like they focused on Scott Hatterberg. He was not the reason for their success. They had three pitchers that were phenomenal pitchers: Barry Zito, Eric Mulder, and or was it Mark? I think it was Mark Mulder, and a third one whose name is escaping me right now. But
they went to the Braves, right? Tim Hudson?
Yeah, it might have been.
Tim Hudson, right? Yeah.
And then, but then also, you got Miguel Tejada, and you got Eric Chavez playing third base. And none of these guys really get any type of screen time. They just focus on the fact that they signed Scott Hatterberg and some submarine relief pitcher because they fit the analytics. And it was like, that's not the whole story.
Yeah.
That team still wasn't yes, they lost Jason Giambi, and yes, they lost Johnny Damon, but guess what? They still had a pretty good team. and they didn't really tell that story. So this movie is incredibly overrated to me.
This movie lives off of a couple things. The biggest is Brad Pitt's likability.
For sure.
Because did Brad Pitt play Billy Bean? Maybe. I don't know. All I saw was Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt plays himself quite often in movies, a la, Vince Vaughn does it as well. He just kind of plays himself a lot in movies, and he's likable. And so it's easy to like the character. Jonah Hill, I thought was great. And the dichotomy, the bouncing back and forth between Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill was entertaining. And I think the movie lived off of that a lot. The story's interesting, absolutely. And, it's fun to watch. But it's not a better baseball movie than 42. No. It's not a better baseball movie than The Rookie, which we're about to talk about next. But score-wise, it blows it out of the water, according to IMDB. So I'm with you. It is overrated. I think it's an enjoyable movie, but I don't think it's that great of a baseball movie. All right, speaking of The Rookie, 6.9, AJ, for The Rookie. So literally the lowest of the nonfiction on this list that we got.
It's such a good movie. It's such a good movie.
It is a good movie.
And maybe it's the sentimentality of me, and maybe it's, I could see the struggles that a dad has bringing his kids to an open tryout. And then, he goes and, you said, what is it, 6.9?
6.9.
Man, listen. It's a relatively unknown baseball player. The story of what he did is more the star of the show than the actual name of the career that they're following. I understand that. I'm going to say that it's perfectly rated. Okay. Just in the sense that it is a great movie, and I do love it, and it's very, touching, I guess you could say, right? But if we're putting 42 and 61 as kind of the benchmark movies, A League of Their Own, right? As the benchmark movies, those are the top tier. This is not that top tier. So I would bring Moneyball's rating down equal to The Rookie, and I would say The Rookie's.
Okay, what about 8 Men Out? Because you agreed it was overrated. It was at 7.2. Would you bring it down to the 6.9 where The Rookie is? Would you go below it? Would you go to 7?
If I were ranking those three movies, it would be The Rookie, Moneyball, 8 Men Out.
So, for me, Dennis Quaid alone is worth a 7. It's just...
For sure.
I'm a big Dennis Quaid fan.
Well, you round it up.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty easy.
The story of, look, you guys make the playoffs, fine. I'll try out for the major leagues. You're the head baseball coach,
right? And
the team, the team's just pestering you. You don't have that good of a team, and lo and behold, they make the playoffs. So now you got to follow through with your word, and lo and behold, you're good enough. You're good enough to get in, and
right.
Dennis Quaid is believable enough as an athlete, and obviously just an entertaining actor of just in general, anything I've seen him in. So for me, it's worth a 7 alone. So I will say it's a tiny bit underrated, but just a little bit.
Okay.
I'll give it a flat 7. But no, I agree with you. I would have it above 8 Men Out. I think I'd have it right about tied with Moneyball. I think they're both worth around a 7. So,
all right.
AJ, this 6-movie list that we ran through here in nonfiction has taken up all of our time for the baseball movies. So guess what? We're going to do nonfiction next time.
Good.
Which is going to be...
No, we'll go to fiction next time.
Sorry, fiction next time. Yes, right. So the
Yeah.
nonfiction took up our list. We'll be doing the fiction one with our next episode. We've got quite a few to go through. I promise you know the names of every single one of these movies that we're going to be talking about, but you don't know what the scores are unless you go to IMDb and cheat and look it up before you watch our show the next time we do this. So for AJ Riley, I'm Matt Basson. Thank you for hanging out with us here on Straight Shooting. We'll see you guys again real soon.